Hey guys, my name is John, and I make videos about Genshin Impact. In this video, I'm covering claymores as part of a series diving into weapon types. These large, two-handed melee weapons have a long reach. They may swing slowly, but they hit hard, in more ways than just damage. Claymores typically have higher attack percentages on each hit, but their damage per second evens out compared to swords and polearms due to longer attack animations. It's worth noting I'll be using swords as a baseline for most melee weapon comparisons. This is the weapon players start with as the Traveler, and from a development perspective, was likely the foundation upon which all other melee weapons were built. As I mentioned in my previous video on weapon types, all melee weapons follow the same basic rules. I believe claymores are simply a derivative of swords that gained a more unique identity throughout development. Diluc exemplifies their similarities more than any other character I've tested. Sometimes he will get a swing in before starting his charged attack animation, just like a sword user, but not always. Why does this happen? I don't know. But let me walk you through what I've observed. Something true of all Claymore users is their first normal attack and their charged attack share a very similar starting animation. On most characters, the switch from a normal to a charged animation is nearly seamless, but slowing things down and comparing a character's first normal attack to their charged attack often reveals the moment the game registers the charged attack and switches animations. This simple Claymore design rule, delaying the swing of the first normal attack animation and lining it up with the beginning of the charged attack animation, is what allows Claymores to appear so unique without altering the basic code behind melee characters. Considering all this, I think Diluc was the first Claymore character the developers made, alongside Noelle, using swords as a template. This would explain why he breaks the rule. He might have existed before this became the standard for Claymore users. When we compare Diluc, Noelle, Razor, and Beidou, the first batch of Claymore characters released, we can see how the developers seem to slightly iterate on the design over time. Noelle's attack sequence uses the exact same timing as Diluc's, but the animations are all different, including her spinning charged attack. Most noticeable to me is Noelle's normal attack animations start fully wound up, relying on the game engine's ability to blend animations by interpolating a few frames to hint at a wind-up. On the other hand, most of Diluc's animations include a brief moment of extension before committing to the swing. Comparing them both to Razor, we can see he appears to follow Diluc's normal attack pattern more closely than Noelle's at first glance, but the appearance and timing of his attack animations, particularly his final attack, are very different when doing a direct comparison. Razor also uses the same charged attack as Noelle, but you may notice his first attack has a wind-up which, in my opinion, makes his weapon summoning and transition into the following attacks appear smoother and more natural. With the introduction of Beidou, we have the first big departure from the basic Claymore formula, with entirely new timing and animations on her normal attack sequence. And although she borrows Diluc's charged attack animation, she officially solidifies the design rule. Claymore characters do not perform a normal attack before a charged attack. Even though the charged attack is the Claymore's most visually prominent difference as a melee weapon, it's not the most important in my opinion. The heavy application of two lesser-known mechanics, blunt and poise damage, is where Claymores truly stand out. There are some ways to deal these two hidden damage types with other characters, but seeing as it's the preeminent trait of every Claymore, it makes sense to quickly cover them here. Simply put, poise damage is the reason some weapons like Claymores are capable of staggering large enemies and sending smaller ones flying more easily than others. Every attack in Genshin deals some amount of poise damage, and every common enemy has some amount of poise damage they can take before being thrown by an attack. Along with this, each attack has an amount of force behind it, determining how far the enemy will be thrown after their mass is taken into consideration. On average, Claymores deal twice as much poise damage behind each swing of their weapon. Moving on to blunt damage, this is the reason why Claymores deal extra damage against specific targets. It's what makes them extremely useful for mining ore or knocking down geoconstructs and geoshields. Most notably, blunt damage is the mechanism causing shatter reactions against frozen enemies. Poise damage is factored into every damage instance in the game. but blunt damage is much harder to come by in non-Claymore characters. Claymores are undoubtedly the most reliable source of blunt damage, and this is often why they get the most attention for being the most unique physical melee weapon. There is an argument to be made for polearms though, and the next video in this series I'll be exploring them more deeply, because claymores seem pretty great when you consider everything we've talked about so far, but they have been designed with limitations to balance their unique traits. They're a lot slower. On average, claymore attack sequences have one less hit than their counterparts, and although the last attack in their sequence hits hard, the animation often lasts a long time after the actual swing is finished. So, if you're only pressing the attack button, there can be very noticeable downtime. These simple factors generally make claymores more preferable to some in support roles which don't rely on normal attacks. But, as I alluded to in my last video about weapon basics, it's possible to reduce the downtime on your normal attack sequence by throwing in a well-timed dash or jump. Razor is a perfect example of a character who encourages players to use the dash cancel. Since damage is dealt to enemies the moment they're hit, it's possible to cancel your attack animation in the window of time after the damage is applied and before the animation is finished. Doing this allows you to attack again much faster than if you're only pressing the attack button. As Genshin Impact releases more characters with completely new mechanics, normal weapon attacks are featured as part of their kits less often, and as a result I can see the impact of dash cancel and high skill maneuvers like the Dragon Strike diminishing and the distinction between different weapons becoming less important. However, at the same time, I can also see the developers continuing to honor the unofficial rules of these weapon types in unexpected and unique ways. As a designer, I believe that knowing how to maintain the core identity of these different weapon types, while at the same time not being afraid to refine, bend, or outright break your own rules, makes for interesting game mechanics. If you find this video interesting, drop a like, and leave a comment about what video you think I should make next.